A lot of very fine directors lose their perspective in the frantic mess of making a movie and trying to make it without going over budget. And a lot of terrible things happen to wonderful directors. I mean, you take a director like Martin Scorsese. When he got into New York, he lost track of what the script was saying. He lost the theme, he lost the characters, and the picture just went, you know, it dissipated on him. Well, see, the auteur theory doesn't help you there.
Who's the commanding officer here? Ain't you?
So, of course, the nth degree of this, of abuse of the system, which occurred in the late 70s with Heaven's Gate, which brought the whole system kind of crashing down around their heads.
Sometimes a person who's simply a very good craftsman is better than somebody who thinks he's, you know, the next D.W. Griffith. Because what we need is some, you know, well-made pictures. Most pictures aren't even very well made.
His first flop really was Daisy Miller. Peter was obsessed with making Sybil Shepherd, whose acting talents were limited, to a star. And the film after that was the first big disaster, which was this musical where nobody could sing. Again, it was this arrogance of somebody who had 3 hits in a row. Everybody said he was a genius, and he believed it.
I was just wondering if you would say that the great film showed the control of the director over every frame.
Well, I don't know. That's something that, see, the trouble is that's one of those auteurist things which I got into a lot of trouble with over the years. And in fact, I think we overstressed it, because now everybody thinks every director, whoever did a picture, was an auteur, you know.
That was never the intent.
They had 2 dogs in a picture. They said, geez, no, it's movie's about dogs.
And that was a huge flop. And as Billy Wilder said, Peter was so hated in Hollywood at that time because he was so arrogant that you could hear the champagne corks popping all over Hollywood.
Perfectly obvious that the director is the key person who has to coordinate the elements of a movie. But it's also true that he needs great collaborators. Without a good script to stand on, he can't get very far. Without good technicians and exactly the right actors, he can't do what he wants. I mean, if you, say, wanted Bogart for a picture and prepared it for him and got Robert Cummings, you may have a certain amount of style, but it will still be probably a deadly movie.
Here's looking at you, kid.
When the credits start rolling and it says a movie by or a film by Steven Spielberg or a George Lucas motion picture, my gut contracts.
I have to know. I have to find out what happened to my life.
It makes me sick, literally to my stomach. There would be no film without the screenwriter, and in many of these cases where the screenplay is based on a novel, there would be no film at all without the writer.
You tell me, who was it that set this up? I don't know. How about now?
But I remember when my husband wrote a film from his play, This Story of Yours, which was made into a film with Sean Connery, and it was called The Offense and was directed by Sidney Lumet. It didn't say a film by Sidney Lumet because, my God, John Hopkins, the whole thing comes out of his head and his heart and his pen.
I think the auteur theory is very dangerous. I think it's dangerous unless you happen to be that exception, which is a writer or a director. But I mean, a director or a writer just have 2 completely different approaches, both visually and mentally. And I think you need, there are very few people who can write and can direct.
The auteur theory works for me, you know, but it doesn't explain everything. You know, it doesn't explain Casablanca. It doesn't explain A Great Escape. John Sturges was a great Hollywood director, but he's not an auteur. He doesn't fit into the auteur theory.
Not everybody who made a movie, you know, was an auteur, and didn't have to be. A lot of movies are just a hack work, and a lot of movies are compromise of the most gigantic kind. And sometimes out of that, you know, lying and stealing and compromise comes a good movie. Everybody says, gee, that was a good one. And everybody says, must have been that director. No, it was just an accident. That happens. A lot of very good movies are just accidents that happen when you have a lot of good people that are working together and nobody quite ruins it.
The absolute worst example is when you see an Alan Smithy film because Alan Smithy is the name that the Directors Guild of America contractually allows its members to put on a film that's a dog. Okay, it's supposed to be a single person's project, and even that person won't put their real name on it? It's ridiculous. The whole notion of the Auteur school of filmmaking is an insult to everybody else in every other aspect of filmmaking.
I suppose that great artists like Picasso and Renoir, people like that, could sit in front of a canvas and pretty well say, that's it, that's the best I'm able to do.
Avant de commencer un tournage, je désire surtout faire un film qui sera beau. Dès que les premiers ennuis surgissent, je dois réduire mon ambition et je me prends à espérer simplement qu'on arrivera à terminer le film.
But movies are a collaborative effort. I mean, God knows you certainly find that out when you have less than great people working with you. How much you need everybody to do their best. I mean, if you have 180 people working for you on a film, and if one of them in a key position falls down, doesn't do his or her job, the whole thing can go in the toilet.
In fact, you may or may not know this, but Francis Coppola will never take that credit. Even though, as a writer, producer, director, it's more, he certainly more earns that credit than most directors.
This is the end, beautiful friend.
But of course, at the same time, he was probably the most collaborative director I've ever met. He constantly wanted input from everyone. He would ask the craft service what they thought of a take. He wanted everybody's opinion because as an auteur, he had confidence in his vision. Then, of course, you have the first-time director who doesn't want to hear anybody else's opinion because he's so fearful that they will suggest something and he won't really know if it's a good idea or not, so he won't know whether he should do it or not, and then if he does it, that somehow he's losing sight of his vision.
Movies are a group of dedicated people setting out to do something the best way they can.
Such a collaborative.
Un troisième.
Collaborative.
Un cinquième.
Collaborative medium.
Movies have taught me more than anything else on how to get along with people, I think.